Welcome to Hey Therapist. I'm your host, Leslie Ross. With me is my producer, Jay Wesley Lindley. Let's get mental. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hey Therapist. We are on episode 48, I think. So I'm going to continue on with talking about back to school things. Last week, I talked about some things that you may notice in your children and how kiddos react to stress and mental health disorders and mental health stress. And what I want to talk about on this episode is how we can help them. So this episode is more about logistics and how parents and teachers can be more in tune with students and help them along the way and help them to make better choices and just plan better and all of those things. So let's get into it. One of the things that when we're entering a new school year, there is a lot of planning and commitments and thought processes and all of the things that we want to do and make happen and all the excitement of what this year is going to bring and hold. And what I want everyone to be is realistic. Let's be realistic on what we want this school year to look like. So let's talk about the commitments we need and the commitments we want. So the first thing that we need to commit to is our academics. And parents and teachers come into play with that all of the time. We want to think about the classes that these kids are in. We want to think about the homework load. We want to think about how much time they need to designate to each class and what that workload looks like. If you are a teacher and you have your higher end students who may be in AP classes and even your casual students, like the normal everyday student that's just trying to make it through school, keep in mind that a lot of these kids have other commitments. And we know that education comes first, but don't neglect the importance of family commitments, of work commitments, of extracurricular sports, bands, cheer, FFA, FHA, whatever they're in, FCCLA, whatever it is now. Let's not underestimate the importance of those social groups that kids need to understand teamwork and priorities and all of that coming up. So we want to add into those academic commitments, homework and extracurriculars. Let's talk about how much time they're going to take, what it's going to look like. If you're in a club or doing athletics, what does that look like? And if you are the teacher or the coach or all of those things, let's be realistic into the demands that we put on our kids. Yes, we want to be the best. We want to win the trophies. We want to do the things. And also, we want these kids to be getting sleep and rest and having time for everything else in their life that they need to be doing. We also need to set a commitment time for studying. So we have our school time, we have our extracurricular time, maybe they're working. What does studying look like? How much homework are you going to have? How much homework are you going to send home? There's some grades that send home homework, especially for the little ones. Why are we sending homework home? Let these kids study during the day and go home and rest. Their little brains are not set up for that. Like most adults can't work a full day and then go home and do something else that they would need all of their brain power for, or continue working a 10, 12 hour day. A kid's brain is certainly not set up for that. So please be mindful when we're talking about our kids and what is realistic. Also, in commitment, we have to worry about family time. What are the expectations of family? Do they have siblings they need to watch? Are we worried about what that looks like? How can they fit that in? Let's look at that when we're looking at our planner and talk about time management. How much time is that actually going to take? And time management can be an episode all on its own, because there's a lot of adults and a lot of kids that do not understand time management. So the general time management, I'm just going to briefly talk about it because, again, there's a lot. Make the priority list, commit your focus, and be flexible. We want to be flexible. And also make time management when we're looking at a clock or a calendar. Set realistic time frames for things. We may think we can rush through. We may think that we're going through, but if something has a deadline, if something has to take priority, if it's going to affect a lot of people, it may have to be moved up in the timeline. So we need to look at that time management and figure out how to make this happen. I talked last week about the resources on NAMI, and one of the things I found that I really enjoyed are the 3 C's. And they have 3 C's for parents and guardian and 3 C's for educators. The C's are the same. It's get curious, get concrete, and stay compassionate. So I want to talk a little bit about those when it comes to each section of adult we're talking about. So I'm going to talk about parents or guardians first. And I hit on this a little bit last week, but I'm going to go over it again. When we're talking about that first C, that be curious, we want to help our kiddo connect with their mental health. We want to help them connect with what's going on inside them. And we want you to be able to connect and share the joys and the struggles of what's going on with your kids. So, when we're talking about being curious, when you see a kid and they're communicating and it's just like, everything's fine, it's fine, it's probably not fine. So you can use the following conversation starters, and you can say it, something to the effect, you don't have to use my words, use your words, because we don't all speak the same, we don't all say the same things. And I'm going to use NAMI's words because I really like their words. And we can say something like, it seems like you're sadder than normal. Or in the evenings, it seems like you're sadder than you have been. What is going on with that? It seems like you have less interest in whatever their favorite activity was, or playing their games, or spending time with friends, whatever it is. I've noticed you have less interest in that. What do you think that is? Why do you think you're having less interest in those things? And also, when is the last time you felt that way? So if you notice that they're having some struggles and you notice that they're being sad, or you're saying, I haven't heard you laugh, or you haven't really been on your game, like kikiing with all your friends. What's going on with that? Why have you not been doing that with your friends? Do you not enjoy that anymore? We want to ask those open-ended questions. We want them to answer our questions. And in that, we need to embrace the silence. We have a tendency to fill silence with words because silence makes people uncomfortable. If you say silent, most of the time you will get an answer because the other person feels uncomfortable too. So they will probably start talking. Give your kiddo a chance to talk. Don't just fill in the gaps. Don't assume they're feeling a certain way. We want to know how they're feeling. We want to be concrete. Maybe have a question thing you do every week. In your weekly meeting, you have certain questions you ask that you always answer. And so it's, how are you feeling about this? What are you excited about? What do you want to get done? What activities do you want to do? What can we do? Or there's a day that you talk about mental health struggles. Hey, I was listening to this podcast called Hey Therapist, and it was amazing. Oh, maybe not. But, you could say, I heard, that 1 in 6 kids experience mental health struggles, in high school or at your age range. What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? How do you feel your mental health is? Is there something you need help with? So we want to be concrete. We want to have those questions that we're asking and doing those check-ins all the time. And then the third C in that, stay compassionate. Use that compassionate language, and it's hard sometimes to be compassionate because we want them to just be fine. But if your child is sharing something with you at any age, hey, thanks for telling me that. That must have been really hard for you to say. I really appreciate you trusting me with what you're feeling. I appreciate you sharing that with me. We want to, engage in that active listening. They may say something and you're like, oh, well, that sounds really tough. Well, no, it's not tough. It just makes me sad. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It makes you sad. Like, I misunderstood you. Thank you for clarifying that. And it's hard for a lot of parents to think of talking to their kids in this way, and they just should parent them, and that's fine. Sometimes they just need to be parented. Sometimes they need compassion. They need you to stay compassionate and always remain calm. And what I like to tell people as they're coming into this world when they're working in it is watch your face. If your kid tells you something off the wall, if they tell you something that you weren't expecting, if they share an emotion that you're not sure about or you didn't know they were feeling, you need to watch your face, because if you have a big giant reaction, they are not going to tell you anything else because they may think that you can't take it, that it's too much for you. Or if you get mad at them, they're not going to share because they're just sharing and trying to be honest, and now you're mad at them. So watch your face, watch your reaction, be calm and absorb it. If you don't know what to say next, say, tell me more. That buys you more time to get your thoughts together, figure out a way to talk to your kiddo about this, and appreciate them talking to you about it. For educators, what do the 3 C's look like? Well, it's kind of the same, but a little different because, you are an educator and not the parent. But remember, as an educator, some kids don't have parents. And if they do have parents, they may not have good parents. So we want to be curious. We want, again, to avoid asking those yes or no questions. We want to pay attention to how our kids are acting. And this is one of the things that I've been frustrated with educators before working with them is if you have a kiddo who is always hungry and stealing snacks from other kids or stealing snacks out of your drawer, or they always have snacks or someone's bringing them food, they're probably not eating at home. If you have a kiddo who's coming into class and can't stay awake, you see that they're putting their head down all the time and they're really having a hard time staying awake and alert in class, they're probably not sleeping at home. This is the time to be curious. Hey, I've noticed that you seem really tired when you come to class. Are you not sleeping at home? What's going on? Tell me about your sleep schedule when you get home. Tell me about your nighttime routine. Can you tell me about what's going on at home? And if they're really reluctant, that's a sure sign that there's probably something going on that maybe they've been told to not talk about. And that's when you need to make sure they feel safe. That's when you want to make sure they understand that sometimes it's okay to tell another adult some things, and you get that information and you do what's right. Because if they tell you, you may be the only person they've told. And if you do nothing, you're just another person that's not going to protect them. So ask what's going on. If you have a kid who's lashing out, who is just really struggling, hey, I noticed that when this kiddo comes around, or when so-and-so says something, you really seem to get upset, or you seem to get really anxious when that kid comes around, or you seem really anxious or nervous or scared during lunch period or during recess. Is someone bullying you? Is someone being mean to you? Is something going on you need to talk about? So have those conversations with those kiddos and ask them what is going on. If you notice they're less active, if you notice they're not hanging out with their friends anymore, ask them why. Ask them what's going on. Be curious. You seem sadder on Mondays. Can you tell me why? Why are Mondays hard? How can I make it better? So find out what's going on. Figure out a way to make it better. Sometimes there's things you can do and sometimes there's not. But if there is something you can do for this kid to make their life easier, why wouldn't you? Put in that effort. Ask those questions. With the being concrete as an educator, you want to create good classroom mental health. Like, define what mental health means. Make your actions purposeful. Have a schedule. Have a routine. Celebrate your students when they do good. Acknowledge proactive behaviors. Acknowledge when they're doing good. Put a disclaimer out there. I know that is the first semester. The school's just started back and it can be really stressful. If you're under a lot of stress, talk to me. We can figure out ways to work that. We can do some coping skills. Do breathing exercises in your classroom. Do relaxation skills in your classroom. There are many that only take a couple of minutes at best that can really teach a kid a skill that they can learn. And sometimes you may be the one needing the relaxation. Kids are punks and they may just be driving you up the wall. So it may be you need to take the time to take that breathing exercise. You need to put on the calm music and listen to it for a couple of minutes as class gets started. Be mindful about potential triggers that are happening. Holidays, weather changes, family situations, world events. Kids are very sensitive to these things, and they may not openly talk about it. But if you know that there's been a death in the family, or there was a terrible car crash that one of their friends were involved in, or someone got in trouble, or somebody got kicked off the football team, or the cheer squad, or whatever, which are a big deal at these ages, recognize that. If their friend moved away and now they're sad and they're not making it, recognize that. Identify that. Talk to this child about good coping skills. Like, pay attention to what's going on. I know it's hard, and educators have so much on them, but I can remember the good teachers I had and the ones that didn't really give a shit. And the teachers that I had that I knew cared, I would have talked to them about anything. I would have told them anything. I would have gone to them when I was in trouble. And sometimes it's easier to go to someone who's not a parent. Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who's not in the family. And if you can be that for a kiddo, be that for the kiddo. And that goes into the number 3, which is stay compassionate. Thank your students for sharing how they feel. Validate feelings. I hear you. We're in this together. You know, you may have one child that shares and the other kids may giggle. And you can make the statement, listen, I know y'all are giggling because you may be giggling, whatever. But I also know you're feeling the same way, because this is a normal feeling that everyone feels. And giggling may be your way of deflecting that. But I know you're feeling the same way, so maybe some of this will help you. We want to practice that active listening. And again, remain calm when kids are experiencing emotions. They may not feel safe experiencing emotions at home, but maybe they'll feel safe experiencing them in the classroom. Maybe they feel safe experiencing them with you around. So be that person. And that goes into one of the last things. It's going to be a short episode this week, but it goes into one of the last things about being a trusted adult. And we may think we're being a trusted adult, but we want to be that trusted adult. You could be a parent, a step parent, a boyfriend, girlfriend, a mom or dad. You could be a family member. You could be a non-family member, a cousin, a teacher, a coach, peer support, whatever. You can be anything to be a trusted adult. But to be a trusted adult, you need to be respectful. Most kids find trusted adults people who make them feel not like a kid, who make them not feel dumb, who don't push their comfort levels, who let them be themselves and are not judgmental about it. You let them be whoever they are, even if you don't agree with it. Maybe you have a child, a kid, a young adult in your life who questions their sexuality. Maybe you don't agree with that because you don't know it, you don't believe it, whatever. All you have to know is that is their experience, and be accepting. And that's all you need to do. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it, but being mean and being hateful and not loving your child, this young adult, this person that's in your life because they are questioning their sexuality or they're questioning who they are or who they want to be, that's not super helpful to them. You don't have to agree, but you can be non-judgmental. You can say, hey, if you like it, I love it, as long as you're being safe, as long as you're being cautious, as long as it's what you want. If you are a trusted adult, you are trustworthy. You can keep a secret when appropriate. Adults should not be keeping secrets all the time for kids. If they don't feel like telling someone else and they're really struggling and they want to talk to you about something that is not putting them in danger, that is not putting them in harm's way, they're not a risk to themselves, they're not a risk to other people, but they just don't feel like their parents would understand, and it's maybe something benign. Maybe they're just not feeling great about themselves and they want to talk to you about it. Okay, talk to them about it. Be that person they can trust. And you also want to be accountable. If you're wrong, say you're wrong. If you make a mistake, say you made a mistake. Because if they ask you about it or something's going on, be accountable. Listen, you know what? I said that and I was kind of mean and I lashed out and I'm sorry to all the kids. I didn't mean to act that way. Be accountable for your actions. It goes a long way. And be helpful. Offer solutions, but sometimes being helpful is just listening. We don't always want someone to fix our problems. We may just want someone to listen. We may just need to vent, and we're going to come to our own conclusion. We're going to come to our own answers. We're going to come to our own way of thinking about something. And sometimes that's all the young people need. That's all them little kiddos need. They just need someone to vent. And they may say, well, what do you think? And that's when you interject. And if you aren't sure what they want, you can say, well, do you want to know what I think about this, or did you want to just vent? And they may say, I wanted to just vent. And you say, okay, well, then you did a good job at that. And if you need to talk about it again, I'm here for you. And that's how you can become a trusted adult. If you are that trusted adult, you can figure out a way to make people more comfortable. And if you want to be supportive, you can be supportive. And, you just remember we were all that age. And whatever age it is, we were all that age. Sometimes life was scary and it was confusing and we didn't have anybody to talk to and we weren't sure how to talk to someone. And, it may be in those lesson plans and in the other things, you talk about how to start the conversation. If you're thinking about harming yourself, you can tell me. If you're thinking about, your body image, if you don't feel good about yourself, you can talk about it, and creating some sort of prompt for them to be able to start the conversation with you and letting them know that you are supportive. Having resources in your classroom about bullying, about self-esteem, about time management, about social media, about all of these things that can be destructive and harmful. It may be great. And there's, like I said, a ton of resources out there for you. NAMI, again, has a great back to school section on their website right now, nami.org. Therapist Aid has some great worksheets that you don't have to be, super specialized to be able to walk someone through. A lot of them, there's self-esteem worksheets in there. There's impulse control. There's anger issues, all kinds of things that really are more like self-reflective worksheets that you could help anyone walk through, that you could have there just as a resource. There's community mental health agencies that will have resources. There's online sites. Make sure you're getting it from a trusted online site that you're using it from. But otherwise, there's a lot of resources out there. If you need any resources, you can email me, hey@heytherapist.com, hey@hey-therapist.com. You can go to the website, heytherapist.com, and send a request for information through there. You can ask me questions through there. Be more than happy to find you resources and help you figure out how to talk about things and how to work with your kids and what you're seeing this year and what may be something you can use. I just wanted to give a shout out to all the educators out there and the parents, and especially the educators, because you have all the kids, not just your own. Thank you for what you do if you are a good educator. If you are not, step up your game. Be better, do better. Help the kids. They struggle more now than we ever have. There's so much more that impact their mental health than we ever could think about. They have social media. They've had COVID shutdowns, which set everyone back in their socialization, in their learning, in their way of coping. They've had national threats that they've heard more about. Yes, we had a lot of things happen growing up, and we got a little news article. Maybe it was on the TV. It wasn't in our face 24/7 like it is for these kids these days. They are never away from it. They never get a break. So be mindful of the struggles that these kids are going through, and don't just be like, well, we never had that problem, or I never had that, or we didn't do that in our... No, we didn't, because the world was a very, very different place 30 years ago, even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. We're not even 5 years past the COVID shutdowns. And whether you agree with them or not, they affected everyone. Our kids are seeing that, and our educators are seeing that, and our parents are seeing that and feeling that. And so be mindful that these kids have gone through some things that we couldn't even imagine at that age. And the wars and the threats of wars and the shootings and the natural disasters and all of that. Yeah, we had those things, but we didn't have to see it day in, day out, news articles right there in our eye holes, in our ear holes, conspiracy theories, and all the other things. So really just try to be a little more patient with kids and what they're going through and what they see and hear and do, because a lot of times they know not what they do, and they're seeing, hearing, feeling things that they are not equipped for, and they need that support and help. And that's where the adults in the world come into play. And we all need to do better and be better for our young people, because they're the ones that are going to be taking care of us. They're the ones that are going to be running things when we're too old to understand what's going on, or we're too old to do anything about it. So just be mindful and be as understanding as you can, and be that trusted adult. And I think that's going to be it. See you next week.